Hi, my name is Karen Kitos, and I am lucky enough to be the science resource teacher for the Chula Vista Elementary School District located at the Living Coast Discovery Center. The Living Coast is a small environmental education center located in South San Diego Bay. We have sharks, we have snakes, we have sea turtles, eagles, and more. Last year, we were able to provide unique, engaging live events, and we are back. We're going to be having live events about every other Friday around 9 o'clock, and educators from the Living Coast, Health, Hydro, Innovation, and Energy Station are going to be presenting hands-on, interactive events so students can try on different careers, they can meet live animals, and they can try out the process of engineering. This is going to happen every other Friday, and we hope that you put it into your morning routine on Fridays. Today's event is titled Innovation Inspired by Nature, Reptile Edition. And we are going to focus on how reptiles have inspired biologists and engineers to help invent things that help people live better. Animals and plants have been on Earth for a long time, and they have become survival experts. So when engineers want to develop something new, looking at the structures of plants and animals and their abilities can really be helpful. Is there an animal that you think is amazing? What is it about this animal that makes you go, wow? For example, I think chameleons are pretty fantastic. I think they're amazing because they have very long tongues that they can shoot out of their mouth super fast to be able to catch their insects. Can you think of an animal that is extraordinary? If so, I would love to hear your responses. If you could put them into the question and answer section, I have my friends Mr. Bruder, Mr. Garcia, and Mrs. Hughes helping me out today, and they'll be able to answer questions and comments throughout the program, and I will be checking back in as well. So I'll be checking out your answers in just a moment. So please go ahead and enter the animal and what makes it extraordinary into the question and answer section now. So as we're going to be studying about innovation inspired by nature, we're going to be going through 4 main objectives. First, we're going to understand, what does this word biomimicry mean? We're going to be looking at some amazing examples of innovations. And we're going to be looking at some abilities of animals that are pretty impressive. And you're going to get to meet some of our scaly friends here at the Living Coast. We're also going to be looking at who is using biomimicry. And I'm going to invite you to become an engineer. So what is biomimicry? Well, it's when people use ideas from nature to solve problems. Nature has had a long time and to figure out successful solutions for problems that we have just started investigating. The solutions in nature are sustainable and do not harm the earth either. Engineers have a problem, they go and work with biologists, and they both look at the natural world and how some of those problems were solved in nature. There are amazing animal abilities. Check out these geckos' feet. They can walk on the ceiling and walk up walls and hang upside down for long periods of time. Would you want to do that? I know I would. There are some jobs that would really benefit from this talent also. So there are shoes that have been created that are similar. They don't allow you to walk up walls yet, but there's also gecko tape that can hold up to 700 pounds and then be easily removed off of the surface. So we can solve some pretty amazing problems by taking on animal abilities, and this is through biomimicry. I have a short video clip from Janine Benias, who is the Biomimicry Institute founder, and I think this will help you kind of get to know biomimicry better.
Life's been on Earth for 3.8 billion years, and in that time, life has learned what works and what's appropriate here and what lasts here. And the idea is that perhaps we should be looking at these mentors, at these biological elders. They have figured out how to create a sustainable world. So rather than inventing it from scratch, why don't we take our cues from them? These are earth-savvy adaptations. They're the consummate life. These organisms are the consummate engineers. They're the consummate chemists and technologists. They've learned how to do it in context. So that's the core idea behind biomimicry. Is that the best ideas might not be ours. They might already have been invented.
Are you excited? I think it's fantastic that we can use nature to inspire solutions to our problems. We're gonna now check out some amazing examples of biomimicry. Would you like to play a game? Since we're focusing on reptiles today, we're gonna focus on inventions inspired by them. So I'm gonna show you a picture of an invention that was inspired by a reptile. And I want you to try and figure out, was this invention inspired by turtle tortoise? Was it inspired by a lizard? Or was it inspired by a snake? Ready? Let's go. First invention. The first invention is a backpack, and it was inspired by an animal. Can you guess which reptile was studied by engineers to design this backpack? Was it turtle tortoise, a lizard, or a snake? If you said a turtle, you're absolutely correct. The problem that engineers wanted to solve was that people liked having comfortable, soft backpacks, but they didn't want their stuff inside to get crushed or damaged. So they studied the shells of turtles, and they were able to find that the shape of the hard plates and how they were attached together really gave them some great ideas. So engineers made this backpack after a similar pattern to the tortoise's shell, so that the backpack can be flexible and soft, but also provide protection for the items inside. Pretty smart, right? Let's try another one. This is a shoe that has a special material on the bottom of it. This bottom material was inspired by a reptile. Can you guess which reptile the engineers studied? Turtle tortoise, lizard, or snake? A snake. The problem that engineers wanted to solve was that there are some people that have some difficulty walking, and they wanted to find a way to help them grip the ground better. However, a shoe needs to have a flat surface because they're walking on smooth floors. So the snake skin is actually rough in one direction and smooth in the other. So this idea was used by engineers to create material that was kind of like a snake skin. So now when the people are walking, they are able to have a smooth surface to walk on. But then as soon as they lift onto one foot to balance, they have extra grip. So pretty smart, right? How about another one? How about this one? This is a picture of a camera and a contact lens. They were both inspired by a type of animal. Which reptile did engineers study to create these wonderful inventions? Turtle tortoise, lizard, or snake? This one was inspired by a lizard. People's eyes and cameras don't work very well at night. It's kind of hard for us to see at night, but geckos can see well at night. Some can even see colors at night, which is pretty unique. So by studying the eyes of a gecko, engineers were able to improve cameras, and they're also working on developing a new contact lens, which will help people see better both in the day and the night. Those are some pretty excellent eyeballs. You're doing so well. How about we try a couple more? This is a hypodermic needle and a microneedle patch that were inspired by animals. Can you guess which reptile the engineers studied for these? Turtle, tortoise, lizard, or snake? This one's a little bit tricky unless you were thinking of fangs of a snake. It is inspired by a snake. So they studied the fangs of venomous snakes, and because they can inject quickly and they're trying to figure out how to inject with less pain. So they came up with these microneedle patches. Mosquitoes' mouths are also being studied because many times we don't even feel a mosquito bite us. So if we can copy their mouth structure, we can make shots a lot less painful. How about one more? You're doing so well. Keep it up. This is a UCAT robot, and it searches for buried artifacts or explores sunken ships. So it's used by archaeologists. And it was inspired by an animal. Can you guess which reptile the engineers studied for this one? Turtle, tortoise, lizard, or snake? This one was pretty easy, right? This is a sea turtle. They look so similar, right? And the robot has 4 different flippers that actually can move separately. They were using propellers for this robot, but the propellers would mix up the sand and mud at the bottom of the ocean or whatever surface they were studying, and it would make it too cloudy to be able to see the items that they're wanting to study or recover. So flippers were the perfect solution so that they could get close to these objects, but still be able to see them. Well done! Aren't these amazing inventions? And they were all inspired by reptiles. Now I would like to bring out my first animal ambassador, and this is going to be Oswald. He is a gopher snake, and he is about 8 years old. Gopher snakes can actually live to be about 15 years in captivity, but they can be up to 33 years in captivity, but like 15 years in the wild. So this is Oswald. Hi, handsome, and he is super active and super long. He's about 4 feet long, which is quite long for a snake, but that's pretty normal for a gopher snake. I'm gonna get him all nice and comfortable here with me so that we can get him to have you see him a little bit better. So I'm bringing him out today because I want to show you some of the amazing inventions inspired by snakes. We've already talked about a couple of them, and I want to kind of bring out him for a couple more. There we go. Now we're getting a little settled, huh? So remember the one that we talked about, which was the pattern on the bottom of the shoes, right? And that was inspired by snakeskin. So if you look at Oswald's skin, you can see that it's covered in scales. And if I was to pet Oswald from his head towards his tail, like this direction, it's very smooth. But if I was to do it the opposite direction, it's actually pretty rough. And we don't pet snakes like that because it would kind of feel like you or someone is actually lifting up your fingernails, which would not feel so good. So we never touch snakes in that direction, right? He's so curious. He loves to explore. Oh, handsome. All right, so that was one of the amazing inventions inspired by a snake. Another invention that actually has been inspired by snakes is that people that are in search and recovery teams actually designed a robot that is looking like a snake. So after an earthquake or if somebody falls into a really kind of area where people can't get to, they need a way of getting to them. And so snakes' bodies, you can see how Oswald's is very thin and he can actually move in really different ways and be able to even get into pipes, like skinny things like pipes. So after an earthquake, when they need to have the search and recovery team find things, they can send this robot that works like a snake into really small places or places that are unsafe for people. Another amazing invention that was created to solve a problem and inspired by snakes was another robot that was helping out archaeologists and astronauts. They had a problem that their robots kept getting stuck in steep hills on sand. And so they studied a special snake called a sidewinder. And the sidewinder snake is excellent at being able to climb up sandy surfaces that are very steep. So I'm going to go ahead and put back Oswald so I can show you a picture of this sidewinder snake and of the robot that these engineers developed. So thank you, Oswald, for helping us out today. You've been very helpful on showing us some of these amazing adaptations and abilities that you have that have inspired engineers to create awesome products. Bye for now. All right, so this is a sidewinder snake, and it is slithering up a hill. You can see kind of the pattern that it's left behind. And this is the robot that engineers created after studying the sidewinder. So check it out, the same movement. Engineers were able to study nature to be able to solve the astronaut and archaeologist problems. Pretty cool, right? So Mr. Bruder, now that they've been able to see some inventions inspired by reptiles, I think this might be a good time for us to check in and figure out or hear some of those amazing animals and their abilities that our viewers have shared. Would you mind sharing some of their responses?
Hey, Mrs. Q, yeah, I would love to. We have some great ones shared from some students and classes across the district.
Woohoo!
We have our friends at Olympic View in 2nd grade sharing about how they love how sand snakes are able to go through the sand.
Like the sidewinder, very cool.
Right. We had Malik share about the great horned lizard and how it's able to shoot things out of its eyes.
Blood and fat. That's pretty amazing, right?
We had Patrick mention how he thinks orcas are amazing because of their place in the food chain.
Ooh, one of the top predators, definitely. They are amazing animals. I love orcas too.
Yeah, we had Mrs. Nicoletti's class at Vista Square talking about rattlesnakes, Miss Farlow's class at Allen talking about chameleons and eagles and turtles and all kinds of great things. Our friends at Rosebank in 4th grade talking about the blue whale and its massive size.
So big. Can you imagine like actually being next to something that massive and it actually, you know, it's incredible. All these animals have such amazing abilities, and it's pretty inspiring to know that we can now use those abilities to be able to create things that can help people.
Yeah, Mr. Morales' class at Camarena mentioned about monarch butterflies and their how they're extraordinary because of their transformation. Lucas mentioned about I'm sorry, Ms. Q. There's just so many cool ones I wanted to share with you.
keep them coming. Yes, I want to hear.
Lucas shared about a lizard and how it's interesting because of how they don't blink their eyes and how they use their tongue to keep their eyes wet, which I think you mentioned last year in the live event.
That was a gecko. Yeah, very cool that you know that.
So many great ones out there. Another one from Olympic View 2nd grade about how geckos can camouflage for protection. So I could share these with you all day. We have so many great ones, but I know you have some cool stuff to show us still.
Well, it's so exciting to hear how you all think that animals are amazing, because I completely agree. They have so many amazing abilities that we can study and now be able to learn how we can help ourselves, right, from them. So biomimicry is when engineers kind of start with a problem and then they research these amazing abilities that are in nature to help us solve these problems. And currently, there's a different type of reptile that's being studied to reduce the amount of energy that it takes for water to move around on Earth. So I have a really cool video to show you here. This is a thorny devil lizard. And can you believe that this animal actually inspires engineers right now? Check out this video and you'll know why.
Look at this desert. You've heard of a Sahara Desert. This is the red centre of Australia. This is the equivalent to the Sahara in Australia. It is really, really vast and sparse. This sand, red sand, is why it's called the red center. The deadly heat and lack of water make the red center one of the most difficult places to survive on Earth. Look at this landscape. I'm on the top of this sand dune ridge. If you just look all around me, it's pretty much exact. Oh my, wow, look at that. Oh, that is unbelievable. This is one of the most amazing finds you can possibly get in the red center desert. Look at the thorns on this little lizard. That's how it got its name, the thorny devil. It's just totally still. They actually do that because they're conserving their energy. It's a native reptile out here. Totally harmless. It's absolutely not a devil at all. The main thing, how does this lizard survive out here in this environment? It's so dry and it's so hot. How does it drink? Every animal around here needs water. Well, this has got probably the most amazing adaptation for a desert animal in the world. If you look really closely, it's got these grooves that follow all along its skin. And what happens is that this guy literally sucks the water out from the sand. The sand is dry, but there's still moisture in here. The moisture moves up through the grooves and slowly trickles up to its mouth, and it will be drinking without you even knowing it. So what happens if I just put him on the ground? He would cover himself in sand like this and suck the water from the ground upwards and from the sand on its skin. That is one amazing animal, perfectly adapted for living here.
What an inspiring ability. Being able to suck water and sand when you're standing still, that's amazing. And it's because they have those circular grooves in their scales from their tail to their mouth all over their body. And those grooves are actually bigger near their tail and the kind of feet and legs, and then they get smaller as they go towards the mouth. So they can collect dew at night, they can rub their bellies on wet rocks, or like in the video, they can kind of toss sand on their backs to be able to get more water. So engineers and biologists work together, and they've been able to see that the water flows through his body with very little or no energy by the lizard. So engineers are pretty excited about this, and they've already started to think of ways that they might be able to use this to move liquids around in a car engine or be able to move water around on Earth with less energy. Are you ready for another animal ambassador? I'm going to bring out another animal ambassador so we can look at some of their amazing abilities and be able to think of some inventions that we might be able to use from these abilities. So this is Darwin. Come on out here, Darwin. There we go. Hi, buddy. So this is Darwin, and he is a baby Sonoran desert tortoise. And he is called Darwin because he was named after Charles Darwin, who studied Galapagos tortoises for his very important research. And Darwin is 3 years old, and these types of tortoises can live to be up to 60 years old. And they live around kind of the desert of Arizona. So I'm going to be mentioning some of his really amazing abilities and structures so that we can I want you to start thinking about some inventions that you might like to create that could be inspired by some of his abilities. So I've given him some food here, but he's, I think, a little more excited about exploring this intense environment. But when he eats, oh, you might be able to see him eat now. There we go. Isn't it so adorable? So they have these really sharp or hard beaks and hard tongues. They don't have teeth like we do. So he's able to eat prickly things that are especially plants in the desert, like cactus, which are pretty prickly. I think it would be pretty amazing if we could kind of coat our mouth with something so we could eat some prickly things, because the cactus that they eat, I've eaten it also. It's called nopales. And it'd be nice to not have to clean off all the prickles and just be able to eat it as is. Another thing that's pretty amazing about the tortoises is that they do have this really hard shell. And these structures here are called scutes. Those are the hard plates that are going to protect them. And then there are sutures, which kind of hold them together, which are actually kind of flexible. So if something was going to kind of fall down onto him, maybe a rock, or if something was trying to, a predator might be coming towards him, his shell can actually be a little bit flexible, yet also be very hard, kind of like that backpack that we talked about, right? Now, something else that protects him is that he can tuck his entire body inside of his shell. So the soft parts, right? So if he sees a predator or feels threatened, he can tuck his legs, his head, his tail inside of his shell and be protected like a big rock. So that's an awesome ability as well. I want to kind of bring him a little bit closer so you can see his legs here. How about we come up here? Because I want you to see that he has really hard scales covering his legs. And that's really important for him because they're going to be walking around in the desert where it's really kind of dry, a lot of rocks and prickly plants. So he needs these tough scales on his legs to help prevent him from getting scratched. And they also help him to keep water in his body as well. Also, while I have him up here, you can notice these really sharp, long, hard claws on his feet. And those are going to help him to dig burrows, which is a really important thing that helps him survive as well. So let me go ahead and put him back over here. Want to eat some more, handsome? So something else that really is important about these, with that burrow, they dig the burrows under the rocky area, and I wish that I had some type of claws on my hands that maybe I could use when I go to the beach to dig a hole, or maybe when I'm gardening. I think that would be cool too. They also can handle really extreme temperatures. It gets really hot and really cold in the desert. So in those burrows, they can go underground to kind of protect themselves from the extreme temperatures. If it gets too cold though, they can actually kind of go into a hibernation, which is called brumation or brumate. So they're able to do that to handle those really high temperatures and low temperatures, and they can conserve energy when they are brumating. And finally, they are in the desert and there's not very much water. So desert tortoises can actually hold water for up to a whole year. So they don't need to drink for a whole year. It's pretty amazing. I would be amazed if I didn't have to take a drink of water for a year, right? So those are some pretty inspirational traits about desert tortoises. You eating some more? There you go. Now I'm going to go ahead and put him away in just a moment, but I want you to think about, are there inventions that you know have already been invented, or maybe that you think you could invent or design that would be designed after some of these abilities? Maybe they could solve problems. Remember, that backpack was soft but protecting, right? Maybe there's other inventions that could be inspired by a tortoise. When I put Darwin back, I want you to think about some of those ideas, and I would love for you to put them in the question and answer section so that I can hear your ideas for inventions that would be inspired by a tortoise. Thank you, Darwin, for helping us out today. He's been pretty amazing, right? I think they're adorable. Only 3 years old. Bye, Darwin. All right, so start thinking about those inventions. What can we create that would help us, that would be able to have inspired by some of those abilities that we have talked about? Here's a list of those abilities in case you kind of want to have them to look at. So don't forget, put those into your question and answer section, and I'll be able to read them out and hear from Mr. Bruder shortly. I think biomimicry is super interesting, and I hope you do too. Companies and engineers are now looking at nature for solutions and for ideas. In fact, the San Diego Zoo actually has a center for bio-inspiration. And Sprint, which was a cell phone company, worked with the zoo as its bio-inspiration center, and they figured out a new packaging for their cell phones that was sustainable and also saved them money. Nike and NASA have also used the Bio-Inspiration Center at the San Diego Zoo to create new products. Who knows? Maybe you would become a biomimicry engineer. What are you interested in? Do you want to walk up a wall? Would you like to clean up pollution? Maybe you want to make airplanes fly faster. Or maybe you want to read something from across the field at a soccer field. Looking at nature could provide you solutions and ways to create any of these amazing abilities. If you're not quite sure or you want some more ideas, asknature.org is an amazing resource. You can find animal abilities and inventions that have been inspired by nature. And it also might be a great place to go to help you come up with an idea or a way to solve a problem. I highly recommend putting that or going to this link, and it's in the question and answer section as well right now. If you look at this, you can see that clothes have been actually made waterproof by people studying animal fur. And they've also been able to make windows that are safer for birds by studying spider webs. Just so inspirational. Now that we've learned about biomimicry and you've seen some examples, I have a challenge for you. I want you to become a biomimicry engineer, and I want you to create an invention that is inspired by nature. My next live event is on October 22nd, a ways off, and I would love to show some of your designs at my next live event. So right here is a link to a Flipgrid where you can actually go in there and submit your responses, and I'll be able to show them at my next live event. So take a photo or a screenshot of this. You have this link. It's also in the chat right now as well. Also, if you didn't have your responses read from the chat or the question, if you don't get to all of those responses, you can also use this Flipgrid to send me your responses so I get to see them and hear about them as well. I can't wait to hear your amazing inventions, and I'm excited to show some of them in October. I'm sure they already have some amazing ideas, Mr. Bruder, so I would love to hear some of the inventions that maybe might be inspired by a tortoise or to give us tortoise abilities that our viewers have shared already. Would you mind sharing some of them?
You know what, Mrs. Q, a bunch of them are posting them right now, but while they're doing that, I wanted to share with you that we had a few different students and classes kind of share about adaptations that you mentioned, like how the thorny devil lizard and how the water drips down its back to help hydrate them.
So cool, right?
We also had a question for you. I was wondering if you could answer.
I hope I have an answer.
Why the sidewinder moves in the direction that it does?
Oh, it's incredible. So the scientists have been able to study it. And so they don't necessarily, like a snake, if they were to go straight up the hill, they would just get buried in the sand, right? Because sand is constantly moving. If you've ever, dug a hole at the beach, you take some out of the hole and more falls in, right? And takes more out. And so as a snake would try and move up there, if they just kind of moved in one direction, kind of like a snake normally does, they would just get buried. And that's what the robots were kind of having problems with. So sidewinder, it actually moves sideways. So it kind of puts part of his body going in one direction and the other part going in another. So it's kind of moving in two directions at once, which can stabilize and kind of flatten out the body more on the sand to give more surface area and allow him to move up that steep hill that's also moving.
Got it. We have some of those invention ideas coming in. A popular one was protective equipment inspired by turtles. So like bike helmets, armor, an umbrella is a way to gather the rain and runoff.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, bike helmets definitely need to protect something very important, right? Our brain. That definitely would be good to look at tortoise shells for that, for sure. And umbrellas, I like.
We had Logan, a fourth grader, who said that a robotic shark with a camera that can't be detected.
Ooh, that would be so cool.
We also had Emma from Hilltop sharing about the tortoise armor that could cold water sockets and like cold water in kind of like bean bags to stay cold.
Oh,
Keep the armor cold.
Yeah. So you would actually, because the tortoises can kind of hold on to water for a long time, we would kind of take that idea and put it into something that would be able to keep us cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah, Miss Ryan's 5th grade class was sharing how they wish they didn't have to drink water for an entire year and they could have tough scales to be more durable.
That would be nice.
Eyesight like a lizard.
Ooh, eyesight like a lizard. I am ready to be able to see at night and even see colors at night. I think that's cool as well.
Yeah, there's so many great ones. I really look forward to seeing them on that Flipgrid. So I hope all those great ideas, if we didn't get to share it, we get to see them on Flipgrid a little later.
Absolutely. Fantastic. Well, I can tell you are already thinking like biomimicry engineers already. So I hope that you do that biomimicry challenge and submit your responses. And you don't even need to know what your design is when you go to the Flipgrid, because I give you a step-by-step process to go through, and it'll help you come up with an idea and also create a design. So go to that Flipgrid and please go ahead and submit your amazing animal abilities, and then also your designs that you've made through biomimicry. Can't wait to show them in October at my next live event. So if you've enjoyed seeing Oswald and Darwin today, if you'd like to see more animals, I actually have a Creature Close-Ups with Mrs. Q YouTube playlist. And there's actually one all about Oswald on there as well. So that link is in the question and answer section right now, and also here on this screen. The Living Coast Discovery Center is now open Thursday through Sunday. So we hope that you will come and visit and see all of these amazing animals in person. But you don't have to wait till October for another live event. In 2 weeks, Mr. Garcia from the Innovation Station is going to be presenting engineering helicopters. This will be a hands-on interactive experience, so don't miss it. Thanks again for joining today. We hope that you make this part of your every other Friday morning routine. Bye for now.